Welcome. I should preface this by saying this is a spoiler review. If you haven't seen the film yet, I'd advise clicking off the video if you still want to see it for yourself. I will also be talking about the last Mario film as well, so if you also haven't seen that, same rules apply. Now that we got that over with, let's get into the actual review. Directed by Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelenic, the Super Mario Galaxy movie is an animated film based on the 2007 video game Super Mario Galaxy. It follows Mario and Luigi, who after their defeat of Bowser in the previous film, has made a comfortable life in the Mushroom Kingdom. However, after the princess of the kingdom, Peach, learns about a space princess who got captured, she goes off to save her. Mario and Luigi are then dragged into this mess by the person who kidnapped this space princess, the secret son of Bowser, Bowser Jr. I've made it no secret on this channel that the new Mario movies are not exactly something worthwhile, in my opinion. If you can get past all my uhs and ums and even worse than now stuttering in my 2023 video, my review of the original Mario movie is way more on the negative side. In my 2025 video, I said I was cautiously optimistic about this film. I should probably start off with that. I should state this now because it's definitely going to color the rest of this review. Super Mario Galaxy is easily in my top 10 games of all time. I may be more of a Sonic fan, I've made that no secret on this channel, but Mario will always hold a special place in my heart, Galaxy especially. I remember the first time I beat the game at the ripe old age of 7 or so years old. It felt like a major accomplishment. I wasn't amazing at really any video games at that age, so when I led Bowser to that lava pit for the final time and saw the Comet Observatory and his giant fortress almost get sucked into a black hole, it was an absolute wonder to view. It took me a while to get to that point, but when I got there, nothing else mattered. I've gone back to replay this game over and over again, and I've 100%ed it more times than I can count. Yes, that's both with Mario and Luigi after you unlock him. This game has always held a special place in my heart, so naturally, I was extremely hesitant when they announced that this would be the follow-up to the last Mario movie. A film that I thought wasn't amazing and felt like they didn't take the time and care to properly make a Mario film. The last film didn't have the best world building and kind of just threw things at the screen hoping people who actually played the games would recognize it. The film itself was bland and didn't do enough to justify its existence when you could probably get a similar experience just watching a playthrough of one of the games. And Take On Me's playing for some reason. But I tried to keep an open mind about this film. I saw more and more of the trailers, and it looked like they were focusing on the strength the last film had. But then, tragedy struck on March 26th, basically only a week before the film's release. Illumination very stupidly announced a character that would show up in the film. Fox McCloud. Only a day later, they announced he was going to be voiced by Glenn Powell. This really soured my outlook on the film. I went into it thinking it would just be a train wreck of a film that would just throw references at you, hoping that you'd clap because you recognize it. Basically what people claim that's all the MCU does now. But after having seen it and having sat on it for a little bit, it's not god-awful, but I don't feel comfortable calling it good. Let's start with the positives. Probably my biggest positive is the animation, which is also a carryover from the last film. These two films are easily the best looking in Illumination's entire catalog. More specifically, the way they light and texture these characters. Now, they don't go overboard and betray the inherently cartoony look of these characters. This is in Incredibles 2. It's just right. This is increased tenfold when they're actually exploring the cosmos. These space scenes are gorgeously animated, and you can tell a lot of time and care went into these. Everything is bright and colorful and not afraid to hold back in how they look. Even if I was questioning what I was watching, I could at least enjoy the remarkable animation this film had going for it. I'm also glad they, for the most part, cut out the licensed songs. Now chances are, there's some I missed, but it's not nearly as egregious as the last film. Seriously, why the hell did they license Battle Without Honor or Humanity, only to use it for like 10 seconds? Yeah, I don't have a ton else for positives, so let's move on to the negatives. So, there's a lot to go over here. I guess I'll start with the one that a lot of people talk about already. This film moves way too damn fast and absolutely refuses to slow down. Now I get that because this film is only 98 minutes, it doesn't have the luxury of having extra time to sit down, but I'd be more okay with that if a lot of the stuff in this film was actually necessary for the plot. I can think of at least 3 different parts of this film that don't have much purpose to either extend the runtime, reference the games, or just keep the energy up because it's a kids movie. The 3 parts I'm thinking of are when Peach and Toad are at the Gateway Galaxy and get robbed by a Yukiki, and they have to chase it down. Now, while the set piece of the giant cube casino was cool and felt like a nice nod to some parts of the Mario Galaxy game, it's not needed for the film overall. I'm assuming the only reason they had this detour was so they could have one big homage to Super Mario Bros. 2, or Doki Doki Panic if you want to be one of those guys. Now, I actually love the way Wart is animated here. The detail that he always had bubbles coming out of his mouth anytime he spoke was a really cool detail. They found the one fan of Wart in the animation house, and they put their heart and soul into this scene. But it's moments like this that don't really add anything to the story. Another one like that was after they crash land on another planet, and while Peach and Fox are attempting to fix the ship, Yoshi has to protect Luigi and Mario, who were turned into babies, from a giant T-Rex. Yes, it's the one you're thinking. The only reason that's there is to have a sequence to remind you of Mario Odyssey and Yoshi's Island, where Yoshis have to protect Mario. The last one I'm thinking of isn't nearly as much of a detour, but there wasn't much reason for the Honeycomb Galaxy to be in the film, considering they just brush right past it. The thing actually from Mario Galaxy. Jesus Christ. I'd also like to highlight the score by Brian Tyler in this film. I find it has a lot of the same issues as the last film, where it feels like there's an over-reliance of the Koji Kondo themes. Now, I'm all for having the original themes of franchises in films. However, I also like when a composer is able to do more with it. I loved the Godzilla King of the Monsters score because it knew exactly when and where to use the classic Akira Ifukube themes, and it worked brilliantly. Not to mention the theme for Rodan, while not being a direct rip from his previous appearances, still has the vibe. It still gives him his own musical identity, but Bear McCreary was still able to make it echo his previous appearances. This score feels like Brian Tyler had basically no room to play around with the music and was basically just told to use certain themes at certain times. Every time it sounds like he's trying to do something different with the music, it feels like he has to sneak it in there with the already established themes just to make sure it isn't caught. I find this tragic because I actually quite like some of Brian Tyler's film scores. Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, and Transformers 1 are just a few of the ones I like. Hell, even some of his work like in that Mummy film we don't talk about is pretty good. It sucks that this is the kind of situation he had to work with. To add on another problem I had with the music, most of the pre-established themes they did use was rarely from Super Mario Galaxy. The only ones I fully noticed was the Storytime theme and Gusty Garden Galaxy. Every other theme I recognized they only used once or twice, like the Comet Observatory theme or the main menu theme. I'll admit, when that Storytime theme started playing at first, I did almost get into that same nostalgic feeling I had when hearing Gusty Garden Galaxy at the end of the first film. I was actually worried I'd fall for it, but then I realized they barely used a lot of the music from Galaxy. I'm wondering if the reason why is because there's actually quite a few tracks in the game that are designed to be more atmospheric rather than melodic. Because this film seemed like it wanted to shove reference after reference into your face, they wanted tracks that sounded more recognizable at a distance, especially to a more general fan. This is also going to be a more general one, but I didn't much care for Bowser in this film. Mainly because it seemed like they were going to do something interesting with Bowser having conflicted feelings about wanting to rule the universe with his son, but he was also starting to befriend Mario and Luigi. But they just randomly decided to drop that, which makes me a little sad because there are games where Bowser begrudgingly joins Mario because of a worse threat. Immediately, my mind goes to Super Mario RPG, where even though Bowser still hates Mario, Exor basically stole his castle and Bowser won't stand for that. Sometimes I love a begrudging team-up, but this film had an opportunity to actually do something interesting and squandered it for a better fight scene at the end of the film. Okay, these next 3 things are gonna be my biggest criticisms because, oh my god. I'll start off with the fact that Rosalina is the damsel in distress in this film. Rosalina. Now, I'm not a Rosalina fanboy. I know her fan base is a rabid one, But even I know that this was a dumb as fuck decision that clearly came from someone who didn't play the game. Or even read the room, really. Rosalina being this extremely powerful character that basically just sat on her ass doing nothing was a whole thing in Mario Galaxy. Now, I get that this film has a different way of going about things than the game, but Rosalina hasn't made an appearance in a mainline Mario game since Super Mario 3D World. Anyone who's even a slight fan of the original game probably felt their heart sink as soon as this moment happened. Not to mention, this happened to one of the most powerful characters in the Mario universe, but that's a whole other thing I don't want to get into right now. I know there were a lot of people who were excited to see her in this film because she hasn't been featured in much else that weren't any Mario Karts or Mario Parties. Instead, she's ironically one of the least important characters, despite the fact she's literally the reason Mario is able to do what he does in the original game. The second thing I'll talk about is something I'm sure a lot of you were waiting for. The cameos. Jesus Christ, the cameos. Especially from the non-Mario characters. This film does what people accuse Marvel of doing all the time. Those characters actually have something to do in the story and have a purpose. This film is the cinematic equivalent of jiggling keys in front of a toddler. I don't care if a lot of other people used that phrase already, it's true, goddammit. They released a whole teaser literally just showing off all the characters that were going to make appearances in the film, no matter how minor. Again, with no explanation from practically any of them. They're only there for the benefit of the fans who know the games like the back of their hand. But then there's also the non-Mario characters, like the Pikmin. Okay, I'll admit the Pikmin one was the only one I actually kinda liked. I didn't like how they had their own dedicated shot with music even from the series, but it was cute. However, others like Mr. Game & Watch in the final battle were not charming. It really took me out of the film. Now let's talk about the technically not a cameo but still doesn't do much. Fox McCloud. So, this film tried making Fox the Han Solo of the narrative. He's the guy with the ship and generally knows his way around the galaxy, and the main characters are desperate to get to said point, even willing to fork over an incredible amount of coin. In this case, literally. Well, there's a reason this doesn't work. Han Solo actually had a purpose in the story and wasn't just there to get everyone to Alderaan. Han was with them on the Death Star. Han helped in the final battle, showing how his character grew from not caring about this conflict to fighting for what's right. This film has Fox pick them up, fight Bowser Jr.'s ship, in a scene that was actually pretty cool, not gonna lie, then fall onto the giant Odyssey reference I mentioned earlier. Then, he basically just pilots the Comet Observatory for the rest of the film. He's the one that leads the air fleet away from the final battle, and he has nothing to do in the third act except for some off-screen space fighting we never see. This leads, kind of, into my third and last criticism, and it's the biggest for the entire film. The reason I think this film fails, and more importantly, why I, as a huge fan of the original game, is so upsetting, is because it feels like the only reason they made this a Super Mario Galaxy film was to sidestep any actual world building they would have had to do and could just use the excuse, it's a different planet, or this character's just an alien. Rather than actually putting in the work, they took the easy way out because they didn't care and needed a reason to show all of these things from the games without explanation. I don't actually know if this is true, but this is how I feel about the film, and that's why I'm so annoyed by this. It feels like they took a game that I, and many, many others love so dearly and is part of their childhoods, to make their jobs easier. The major problem with this film is it just throws shit at the screen without any rhyme or reason and just hoping something sticks. It doesn't understand what made those things so cool in the first place. Like how Fox was handled in this film, for example. If they were truly trying to emulate Han Solo, look into why that character worked for that narrative. How did he grow throughout the film? How did he grow in later films? They never asked these questions and wrote a script that feels like someone writing a fanfiction who couldn't find any other way to fit in their favorite glup shitto, so just decided to say, fuck it. The absolute worst part was I made a realization during this film. I remember when the title reveal first happened, I was thinking it was way too early. The last film had troubles with world building, so now we're gonna have a whole universe to explore? My thought process was that the first film should be what we got, then a sequel would be Mario Odyssey, then the end of a trilogy would be Mario Galaxy. It would be a slower pace to up the ante and would make your job a little easier if you actually had to do some world building. Not to mention, because Odyssey is a much newer game, there's a chance more kids will have played it than Mario Galaxy, and you can get them excited. But then, there was an astronomical amount of references to Mario Odyssey in this film, and I realized that's basically what they were trying to do, but again, probably used Mario Galaxy as a way to make their jobs easier. With the laziness of this film, I'm not exactly looking forward to any films based on Nintendo properties in the future. That Zelda movie by Wes Ball is still something I question even after its first announcement, and after seeing this film, I'm not sure they'll have the patience to properly adapt anything else. I know they've come out and said they aren't going to make a Super Smash Bros. Movie, but I'm gonna be honest and say that I don't believe them. Because, one, this is basically already a Nintendo Cinematic Universe, and two, there's no reason to make this a cinematic universe if you aren't eventually gonna cross them all over one day. Because then at that point, it's just a bunch of fucking cameos. Which is literally why people don't really like this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make a Star Fox movie, and if that Zelda movie does well, yeah, there might be some legal hurdles because it's over at Sony, but knowing Nintendo and how protective they are over their characters, I'm sure that's a battle they're willing to fight. I just know they better not touch anything like Metroid, because I know for a fact they'll fuck it up. Anyways, I'll give the Super Mario Galaxy movie a 6 out of 10. Not a very good film, and it makes me extremely worried about future films based on Nintendo characters. Well, at least I still have the Sonic films to look forward to. I thank you for watching, and remember, come back anytime!